Welcome to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider, whether you be watching visually on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify. Thanks so much for tuning in to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider. Got lots to get into. The week's already kicked off in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League with a couple of games, and it is shaping up to be another busy weekend across the SJHL. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's thank our great sponsors across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League for helping us put on this show each and every week. Of course, UPL doing a great job presenting our Insider show, our weekly show, every show we put on. They are the presenting sponsor. So thank you to UPL, but also a big shout out to Bourgault, Cantera Seats, Capital Auto Mall, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, SGU, Sask Energy, and SGI. Thank you so much for your support, because without your support, the shows are not possible. So we have lots to get into today on the show. Of course, we'll recap the last few days, preview the weekend. We're also going to be joined by the play-by-play voice and marketing man for the Ronge Ice Wolves, Braden Malsbury, get his thought on the start for the Ice Wolves this season and much, much more. Let's bring in Clark. Clark, how are we doing today?
Oh, wonderful. What a week. Great week. I mean, off to not many games in the SJ, but just with the NHL coming back and, just hockey in the air. Everyone's talking hockey now, and it's a great time of year.
It is a great time of the year. Lots of hockey going on. And obviously the week kicked off. Actually, the segue from last week into this week was seamless because there was a game on the Thanksgiving Monday. Hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving and was able to spend time with their families and friends. But the week has already started. So, Clark, let's get right into it.
All right, yes, let's get right into it with the hat trick. Now, Jeromy, we're going to start with topic number one, of course, which is Tuesday and Wednesday's games. There's 3 games, all 3 a little bit one-sided. Let's go. Let's say that.
I think that's a easy way to put it.
Easy way, yeah.
Let's start with Tuesday. Obviously, just the one game on the schedule. The Flin Flon Bombers. They earned a 5-0 victory over the Yorkton Terriers. Of course, the Flin Flon Bombers are playing their 4-game and 5-night road trip. Their Southern swing got off on the right foot. Obviously, 5-0 victory over the Yorkton Terriers. Jacob Vockler had a goal and 2 assists. He got the scoring started. And Harmon Laser-Hume made, I think, 35 saves for the shutout for the Flin Flon Bombers Tuesday night. And then moving into Wednesday, it was deja vu. They got a 5-0 win over the Notre Dame Hounds. But this time, Kenneth Marquardt got the shutout for the Flin Flon Bombers. A little less busy, 23 saves for the shutout. And then in Humboldt, boy, oh boy, the big guns came to play for sure. The Broncos with a 10-1 victory over the Weyburn Red Wings. 5 goals in the first period for Humboldt to lead the way. They were out shooting Weyburn 24-2 after 20 minutes of play. And, of course, all of our lookbacks are presented by Sask Lotteries. Yes, I think I'll start with Flin Flon just because you play a 4-game and 5-night road trip. We saw Ronge go on a similar trip last week, but you start with Flin Flon 4 and 5. You start the first 2 games. Now you're in your day off, and you're starting the road trip off with 2 wins. The offense just continues to roll for the Bombers.
Yeah, 3. I think if my math's correct, 3 for 11 on the power play. So not like overwhelmingly great, but they're still clicking, and getting 10 goals in 2 games never hurts. They got their big boys are still producing really well. Justin Lee's got a couple against Notre Dame. You saw Alexi Silvestri get a couple, and you talked about Jacob Vockler just continuing to put up points, and we'll talk about him in a couple minutes a little bit deeper. So yeah, Flin Flon, like you said, anytime you can get on a road trip all the way to the opposite corners of the province, and then get 2 nice wins under your belt to continue on for the rest of the week, it's a great start for them, and they just continue to show us why they are early favorites in the SJHL.
I just want to go back to something. Did you say 3 for 11 is not great on the power play?
I mean, it's not like 5 for 11 or like 6 for 11.
It's still 20,
it's still solid.
It's still 27.3%. It's still pretty good.
Yeah, 2 for 8 the one night against Notre Dame, and I think they were 1 for 3. So like I said, they're clicking.
I think they would take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
3 for 11.
You're right. Maybe I overreacted a little bit.
Did.
But
I'm just going to call you out on it.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, but they just continue to show us why what we thought before the season, they were a loaded offensive team, and they are just continuing to do that night in, night out. Noah Hoole's having a great season so far. Yeah. We'll talk about him again in a couple minutes. But 2 shutouts never hurts either. 2 shutouts. The goalies, the defensive structure, they're also showing that they can play that side as well.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like Yorkton, not necessarily didn't play a bad game, but they got 36 shots on goal. They just were unable to find the back of the net. And of course, then last night, the Notre Dame Hounds only get 23 shots on goal. And unfortunately for Notre Dame now, 0-9 on the season. And now it's for Notre Dame, it's interesting because now they don't play until next Wednesday. Ooh. So it depends how you look at it. I guess glass half full, glass half empty. Do you want to get right back on the ice and try and get your first win of the season? Or do you think this time off is going to help so you can have lots of practice and, change some habits?
Well, they have been the busiest team so far.
They have.
They've played 9 games.
And I just want to add too, like, even though they are 0-9 on the season, that schedule that they had to start the year. Yeah. Absolutely. It's up there for being most difficult schedules in a 10-game stretch, because when they return to action on Wednesday, guess what? They play Weyburn.
Yeah.
In Weyburn.
Exactly.
So I just want to point that out. That even though they are 0-9,
and it's a very important
their
point.
schedule has been very difficult so far.
Yeah, very difficult, and they've been very busy. So the way I'm going to look at it, and I think Coach Pilkington will look at it this way as well, is, you know what? We've been extremely busy. We've been all over the place. Let's have a few days to just kind of refocus, recollect, recharge, and get right back into it next week, like you said, on Wednesday. So I would say that's probably how they're looking at it. Whereas a team like Humboldt, who's only played 5 games, if they had a week off right now, it might be a little bit more detrimental to them at this time of year. But with 9 games already under their belts, I think a few days off is probably not the worst thing.
And going into the Humboldt-Weyburn game, obviously, I know we were watching some hockey last night and seeing how dominant that first period was for the Humboldt Broncos. And I think it's definitely an eye popper for sure when it comes to the score. 10-1, 5 goals in the first period, 3 in the second, 2 in the third, 3 for 9 on the power play. They had 24 shots in the first period. I don't know if you could ask for a much better performance at home than that for the Humboldt Broncos.
No, they put on a show. 48 shots. I think if you didn't, I can't remember if you said that just now, but
I did.
You did. And Matthew Van Blaricom came out to play, got a hat trick. He's just continuing to perform. A lot of great performances. I mean, anytime you get 10 goals as a team, you're going to have some guys putting up a lot of numbers. If you look at their box score, there's a lot of 1s, couple of 2s. Like the guys were getting busy against Weyburn, and Weyburn's not an easy team to put up 10 goals against. We talked about this last week with their great goaltending performances so far. Mostly, a lot of Daza Mitchell, but also Eric Kale, the young one, and it's not an easy team so far this season to put up that kind of points against, or that amount of goals against. So Humboldt, maybe a bit of a message to the rest of the league. Who knows? Again, they're the least busy team so far. So I think anytime that they can send a message, they haven't had the chance very often. But that was I would say a pretty good one that they sent last night.
Yeah, and then a day off today for them, and then now it's gonna. I'm really looking forward to that. Their 2 games this weekend. They home against Nipawin, but that'll be another good test, because I think a lot of people think Humboldt and Nipawin are gonna be 2 of the top teams in the league this year.
For
so
sure.
That should be a great matchup this weekend.
Yes. Now let's move on, because we have another topic to get into, which is, and we talked about a lot of these guys already, but the top 10 scorers in the league. So if we can pull up the list here, gentlemen. There's some big numbers here, Jared, and I'll let you get into this.
I mean, the list kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Obviously the teams that are having a lot of success early on this season, you're seeing a lot of players up there. Look at Jacob Vockler, 10 goals, 8 assists. Silvestri, they play together on the same line for the most part so far this season. Noah Hull's been outstanding on the blue line for the Flin Flon Bombers. And I think one of the things that stands out for me on this list is not the fact that there's 5 Flin Flon Bombers on here. They've obviously put out some great numbers. But the fact that there actually is 2 La Ronge Ice Wolves on this list, and look at, obviously, La Ronge's record right now to start this season is not the greatest. However, the one thing that has not been the issue for them is putting the puck in the back of the net. And we've seen it with Mason Buchert, Jacob Cassette. But yeah, when it comes to the top 10 scores early on this season, it's kind of the culprits we kind of expected, especially with teams at the top of the standings like Flin Flon. The fact that you see Van Blaricom and Tui up there as well, and they've only played 5 games, it'll be exciting to see where they are after we see Humboldt start to play a little bit more.
Yeah, for Humboldt as a team, they've played the fewest amount of games. They have the second most goals in the league, 34. I mean, they're clearly performing very well when they get a chance to play, and they have a very good, one of the best, well, second best goal differential in the league. They've only allowed 7 goals. They have 34 as a team. So. The Humboldt Broncos have come out early, and like I said, they've sent a message when they've had a chance to do so. Scott Barney has the boys ready to roll, and they have. We talked about this, I think, either last week or the week before. Very balanced attack. They do have some leaders up there on that board, but they do have a lot of guys who are creeping up right behind them as well. So, a very balanced team, good goaltending, good defense, very good combination to have, especially in the SJ early on in the season.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised, and especially with Flin Flon with the players up at the top too, Faulkner, Silvestri, Houle. When you've put up as many goals as they have, I mean, going into this road trip in their previous 2 games against Ronge and 2 games against Notre Dame, they had 34 goals in 4 games. Tack on another 10, that's 44 goals in 6 games.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
The 34 in the 4 games would have been second in the league.
Yeah.
Overall, let alone the whole season.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch so far early on this season. I'm curious. The big thing I think for me when it comes to that is, will they be able to sustain this offense? Obviously, they're currently at 50 goals for in 8 games, which is 16 goals ahead of the next team. Can they continue this? And I think all signs point to the answer being yes.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we've seen Adam McNutt now after their big trade last week. He's gotten into 4 games. So he's just getting going. He's probably going to be a big piece for them, I would think. And they've already gotten good performances from their defensive group, and he's just joining it now. So I think that, like I said, we've talked about Mike Reagan's approach to this season where, he is all in is a strong way to say it, but he is putting a lot of eggs in this basket this season, and all the power to him. They have a great team to do it with, and I think they're only going to get better throughout the season as these players just continue to mesh together and get better. They have the goaltending. We've talked about it, probably one of, if not the best goaltending tandem in the league, right up there anyways. And they just have a lot of great vets, a lot of great young guys who are just continuing to come up, and Mike Reagan's done a great job this season so far.
50 goals for, 19 against in just 8 games played. It's pretty good. It's very good.
Good job.
It's very good.
Topic number 3, Jerry. You wanted to get into some talks about just kind of some surprises. So I'll let you get this underway here. The topic number 3.
Yeah. Well, obviously we talked about so far this season the parity in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. I mean, it's always there each and every year. However, now that we're, 4 weeks into the season? That sounds about right. 4 weeks into the season, we're starting to see a little bit of separation with some of those top teams. But then it's really just a logjam kind of in the middle and down towards the end of the bottom of the standings. And it looks like it's going to be like that for the rest of the season. But I guess my question to you, and then I'll answer it as well, is there a team that has, through whatever amount of games they've played, because some teams have played 5 and some teams have played, just Notre Dame's played 9. With a different amount of games. Has there been a team that has surprised you in a good way or a bad way so far this season, with it being, 4 weeks into the year?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to say the Melville Millionaires. And this is a team that came in with the brand new head coach, obviously, but with the results from last year, we weren't quite sure what we were going to get out of them. They lost a lot of what they had from last year coming into this year. They brought in some pieces, and head coach and GM Doug Johnson he's continued to tinker with his roster as they go. But they've only played 5 games, sure, and maybe that's, it's tied with Humboldt for the lowest amount, but 3-2 so far, a positive goal differential, 6 goals, 18 goals for, 12 against, which is a positive or +6 goal differential for a team that we just weren't quite sure about. Doug Johnson's come in. He's put a really good structure in place. It seems like they're always in the game so far. Like you said, I think before when we were talking about this a little bit, their 2 losses on the season were in Estevan. I think you said by 1 goal each. Am I correct in saying that? So like they're right in every single game. They've been putting up some goals, and that was one of the concerns. Even talking to Doug Johnson in the season preview video that we did, you did, I should say. He was like, you know what, we just have to figure out who our big forward contributors are going to be, and maybe they're still figuring that out. It is very early again for them, but early on, 3-2 record after 5 games. They're sitting technically in a playoff spot right now. It's very early for playoff spots. We don't have to get into that necessarily, but really, really liking what I'm seeing from Melville so far this season.
I think if you're a Millionaires fan, you're ecstatic, to be honest with you, with the start of the season and how well they played. You mentioned the goal differential, 18 goals for, 12 against, and just looking at their stats, and yeah, we talked about it. They might not be the flashiest teams, but they've got 3 players that are averaging a point per game or more. In Caden Drury, who's had a great start to the year, Flynn Maxey, Luke Beadle. They have gotten contributions up and down their lineup, and it's been different players. It seems like each and every night they're getting contributions on their blue line as well, with Peyton Kostitian and Colby Ball. Yeah, if you're a Mills fan, I think you have a lot to be excited about early on, obviously, this season, and I expect that rink's going to be packed this weekend.
Yeah,
as they play them in Yorkton play a home and home this weekend. So,
and one more quick shout out before I let you get going on yours. William Dyke, 4 games. He's played 4 out of the 5 games so far. 201 goals against average, 938 save percentage.
Yeah, he's going to be in contention, I think, for SJHL goalie of the year.
Yeah. So
that's my bold prediction now through small sample size.
Yeah.
I think especially if Melville's playing like this and they get into the playoffs, I think he's going to be a big reason why, for sure.
So who's yours, Jer?
Yeah, I think Melville's a really good one, especially with the small sample size. And I think there's a lot of teams that I think I've pleasantly been surprised with. I think the one though that is up there too, I thought they'd be good. I didn't think they'd be this good early on, and that's the Melfort Mustangs being 6-0
sure.
To start the year. I mean, they've been really good at the Northern Lights Palace because they've played a majority of their games at the Northern Lights Palace this year. But the fact that their their lone game on the road was in Flin Flon, and they knocked off the Bombers, handing them their only blemish of the year. But 32 goals for, 16 goals against. They have the offense. They have the blue line, and they have the goaltender. And despite some of those players not playing any preseason games like we had talked about on SJHL Weekly, they are finding ways to win. I think going into last weekend when they were playing the Weyburn Red Wings, I think a lot of us were talking about, okay, well, this is, aside from that Flin Flon game, this will be a really good test for Melfort. And both games were great. Both games were great with how competitive they were, how close they were. Melfort came back to win on the Friday, 5-4 in a shootout. And then the next night, Melfort would hang on for a 4-3 win. So I would probably have to say them, 6-0 record to start the year. And I think now comes the test, though, for me, at least with them, is now they got to go out on the road a little bit. And they got to go into Kindersley. And even though Kindersley's 2-3-1 on the year, the West Central Event Center has not been too kind to the Melfort Mustangs in recent memory. Last year, they lost both games at the West Central Event Center. So it should be interesting. So that'd be my pick for sure. But it's time to now go to the video chat line, because that's where we're going to be joined by the play-by-play voice, marketing man of the Ronge Ice Wolves, Mr. Braden Malsbury. Braden, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm coming at you live from the merch booth so that no one just walks into the office and says something inappropriate for television.
You know what? We appreciate that. Any big deals going on in the merch shop these days?
Well, we do have some new merchandise with Ronge Ice Wolves with the crease spelling. So those seem to be going like hotcakes, are pretty in demand. It seemed when we put out on our social medias, Jeromy.
There you go. That's great to hear. All right, Malls. Well, let's talk a little hockey. Obviously, not the greatest start to the year for the Ice Wolves, but I think there are some positives in the right direction. But through 8 games, I guess, how would you assess the play of the Ice Wolves so far this year?
Well, unfortunately for the Ice Wolves and the supporters, Jeromy, it seems like the team has had an easy time scoring most of the games. Unfortunately, have had some issues keeping the puck out of their net, but I thought there were some positives on this latest road trip. The Melville game Friday, they had a lead going into the third. Unfortunately, couldn't hang on and lose in overtime. And then you go back to Saturday's game in Yorkton. I thought defensively that was the most structured game we've seen from the Ice Wolves this season. a couple of goals called back, and maybe they get a win and get a couple victories on that southern trip. But overall, I'm sure that the Ice Wolves coaching staff, well, they have told me in interviews, and the players themselves, they got to tighten things up defensively, and obviously try and stay out of the penalty box too. That won't hurt them.
For sure. I mean, it's also early on in the season. That's going to happen for sure. So getting off to a slow start's not the worst case scenario for sure. But you touched on it. One of the things that the Ronge Ice Wolves haven't had a trouble with is scoring goals. We were just, prior to you joining us, we were talking about the top 10 scorers. And despite Ronge currently sitting with a 2-5-1 record, has two players in the top 10 in scoring in Mason Buchert and Jacob Cossette. Maybe just tell me a little bit about how they've taken, it seems like, their next step in their development and now leading the way for the Ice Wolves.
Yeah, Mason Buchert, 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points on the year. I mean, he score sheet each and every match. News for the Wolves, second-year junior A player came over last year in a trade with the Canmore Eagles in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, and he just looks really confident with the puck, very strong on the puck. And then Jacob Cossette, he's a guy that can really shoot the puck. 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. And not only can Jacob score, I mean, the guy hits like a truck. So, he's a well-rounded player. And I think a big part of Jacob's game is his shot. I think he probably surprises some goaltenders with the strength and how hard he can shoot the puck. So, they're off to great starts. And then, it's getting some good scoring throughout the lineup. A new player, Will Forsberg, he's got 8 points in 8 games. Ryan Hodge, who was acquired earlier in the year from Okotoks, he's almost at a point a game. And, they're getting some production off the back end, too. Parker Layton and Ryland Silzer both entering the weekend with 6 points. So, they're getting those contributions up and down the lineup. And then a second-year player like Seth Dragon, he has 3 goals. So, the Ice Wolves are kind of spreading around the offense, and I'm sure that will lead to more success here down the road, Jeremy.
Yeah, again, offensively, it doesn't seem like there's issues for the Ronge Ice Wolves, which is obviously good news. And if they can clean it up defensively, this team will be in a good spot. When you through the first 8 games, I mean, you've seen a bunch of different teams, and I know you pay attention to the league, but have there been any surprises around the SJHL in your mind with the way things have played out through the first month of the season?
Well, I think, a lot of people talking heading into the season league, we're talking about parity, and I'm surprised that Notre Dame Hounds are still without a win. Everybody else in the league entering the weekend here has at least a couple of wins. So that's a bit of a violation. I was expecting Flin to have a good season, and Melford off to a 6-0 start. So, maybe a surprise was a couple teams yet to lose in relation, considering how close it is in the SJHL. But as teams play more games, the standings will change, and we'll see where we're at heading into the second part of the season.
For sure. Hey, home and home this weekend against the Battlefords North Stars. What are you expecting from that matchup between Ronge and Battlefords?
Well, I'm expecting, number one, the Ice Wolves to be well rested on the road. Last week have had some added practice time. This again, any practice time on those 4 and 5 trips, but like the energy at practice today, I'm sure there'll be a motivated group. You want to get back in the win column here. And I saw the North Stars in season, haven't seen what they're all about this year, but looking forward to that one. They are the defending champs, and they have some players on their roster like the first time. So I'm expecting a tight battle. Going to be some tired teams though on Saturday, as they'll both have to the Mel Hagland. Obviously, the Ice Wolves leaving after the game Friday, right, and then the North Stars making the trip on Saturday afternoon.
For sure. Hey, final question for you, and it's off the ice related, but obviously you're also the marketing person, so I kind of wanted to give you free reign to tell the people a little bit about the Ronge Ice Wolf Sportsman Dinner coming up just in 2 weeks. What do you have all planned for that?
Yes, Sportsman Dinner, Jeremy, October the 21st at the the JRMCC featuring former NHLer and Stanley Cup champion Andre Waugh. And you can get your tickets by checking out our poster on social media. You can call me as well, send me an email. Still have some corporate tables available, but looking forward to that. Always a fun event. The Ice Wolves have been doing that for probably dating 2015, so it's always good to see the parents will be in town as well. Kind of a parents' weekend as well, added to the Sportsman's Banquet.
Should be a great event. Smalls, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the games this weekend, bud.
Yeah, we'll see you around. Thanks, Jeromy.
All right, that is the play-by-play voice of the Ronge Ice Wolves, Braden Malsbury, doing the interview from the Ronge Ice Wolves merch booth, which probably doesn't have the greatest internet connection, but a little choppy, but that's
really
okay.
Good products in there, though. I'd love to shop there because they got some really nice stuff.
Well, you better go up to the
next time I'm in
Mel.
the area.
Next time you're in the Mel,
yeah,
you'll have to get your merch.
Yep, I'm in.
But always great to chat with Malls, and like we talked about, is that's the thing with Ice Wolves this year. They haven't struggled putting the puck in the back of the net, but it's the other side of the puck and allowing the goals. Because right now they've allowed 43 goals this year through 8 games, and that is the second most in the SJHL. So
yeah,
if they get that cleaned up, I think they'll be right in the mix when it comes to competing for a playoff spot. And they still are in the mix for competing with a playoff spot, and we're early on in the season, but it's not like they're far away from the teams ahead of them.
I would go as far to say as I'm not worried about that side of it for them. I think they'll figure it out. I mean, they still have Topher Chirico, who's got some experience in this league. They have some solid defensemen, as Braden was saying. So I really think that team and with the coaching staff that they have, I'm not overly worried at this point, I would say, about that. So I think they'll figure it out.
All right. Well, it's an off night tonight in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, but Friday and Saturday both have 5 games on the schedule. So let's take a peek at the games this weekend, starting with Friday. A lot of home and homes this weekend, or matchups, both, the same teams playing each other Friday and Saturday. Humboldt is in Nipawin to take on the Hawks. Of course, a rematch of the first round of the playoffs last year. The first installment of the Highway 10 rivalry between Yorkton and Melville. Always very entertaining, and this year should be even better just because both teams are more competitive this year. Maybe the best rivalry in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League right now that's not a geographical rivalry.
The least
of course,
geographical
is Flin
rivalry.
Flon and Estevan, and they get going. First meeting of the season at Affinity Place Friday at 7. And then Kindersley hosts Melfort. Kindersley finally gets to play their second home game of the year as they host the Melfort Mustangs for a pair of games this weekend. And then, like Malls touched on, Ronge is in Battleford on Friday. And then as we move to Saturday, that's where you'll see those return matchups. So Yorkton is in Melville. Then Flin Flon wraps up 4 and 5 in Weyburn against the Red Wings. And of course, the Red Wings will be looking to bounce back. Humboldt and Nipawin do it at the EPA. They meet up for the second half of that home and home. Ronge and Battleford, second half of that home and home. And then a return matchup between Melfort and Kindersley at the West Central Event Center on Saturday. So, Clark, as we look at the schedules, and I ask you this each and every week, what is your game of the weekend?
Well, I'm excited because we are going to maybe be at one of them. So I'm going to say it's that one. Flin Flon at Estevan Friday night. I mean, like you said, this rivalry between these two teams has blossomed over the last few years and just continues to get better and better. And since we're going to be in the building and I'll be able to see the game in person, I'm going to say that's the one I'm most looking forward to seeing because I'm going to be there. It's all coming together to be a really great game, and we'll see if Flin Flon can continue this dominant stretch of games that they've been putting together.
Well, I guess on the other, to add to that is, will Estevan be able to slow down that offense?
Yeah.
And obviously they have one of the best goaltenders in the league in Cam Hrdlicka. They have a good defensive core, but are they going to be able to slow down the Flin Flon Bombers, who have 50 goals in 8 games so far this season?
And will the shutout streak for Flin Flon continue?
You jinxed it. No, I'm kidding.
I just want to see a lot of goals.
You got to wait till the day of the game. So it's not that bad.
Okay.
But yeah,
we're
that's the other thing with Flin Flon is they played super well on the defensive side of the puck. Both goalies playing well too. So
yeah.
That'll be interesting for sure. For me, I'm going to go with Yorkton and Melville. to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which game. But those rivalry games where, the geographical rivals, they're always very entertaining. And I'd like to see, that's one of the better rivalries in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And I don't think I'm out of line by saying that I think the last couple of years, the rivalry hasn't necessarily been there as much, just because the teams haven't been as competitive or anything like that. But the fact that both teams have new coaches, they're both off to good starts this season, I think this year might reinvigorate that rivalry between Yorkton and Melville. And, firsthand, I'll say this, in 2013, 2014, I am definitely dating myself. 2013, 2014, my first year calling for the Estevan Bruins.
Yeah.
Melville and Yorkton met in the league final. And it was something to see those two buildings packed to the nines. Obviously, both teams separated by 30 kilometers, something like that.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
It's special, and that was obviously the top of that rivalry and the peak of that rivalry.
Yeah. And
I'm excited to see how those two games go this weekend, to see how they go up against each other, because I think, again, we've talked about that division. That division's going to be very close this year.
It already
between
is,
all
and it's
four
continuing
teams.
it.
It's ridiculous, actually, how close they are. I know it's early on, but it's going to be tight.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a chance for Yorkton and Melville each to both, again, we talked about sending a message with Humboldt earlier. Sure. Humboldt sending messages, but this is going to be an important series. The season series between these two teams in this division, like you said, is going to be an important one. It always is, but just the way it's already shaping up this year, these games mean a lot. And I think we'll see that on Friday, starting Friday.
Well, and I think in that Viterra, we always talk about the divisional matchups are always, they mean a little bit more. It seems like than obviously any other game, but with how tight that division is going to be this year, those divisional games are going to be even more important anytime two Viterra division teams lock up this year.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that one. It should be really good. I mean, with how well both teams have played really well this year. And they're kind of both different styles too. I mean, we've seen Yorkton be able to put the puck in the back of the net. But the last couple of games, they've been slowed down by their opposition. And Melville's done a really good job of keeping pucks out of the back of the net. So we will see if that continues. So those are our games of the weekend. Of course, I mean, I think all 10 games are going to be really good this weekend. But, of course, if you want to stay up to date with everything in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this year, be sure to follow us across all of our social medias. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. You can watch all the games on Flow Hockey. That is where you're going to be able to watch your favorite team when they are not in their home barn, or maybe they are playing at home and you just can't make it. You can watch the game on Flow Hockey, and be sure to go to our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Log in with your Gmail. It's free. Hit subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We have surpassed 1,000 subscribers, so thank you so much. And we continue to climb and we continue to grow on YouTube. So thank you so much. And we also have to say a big thank you to all of our great sponsors across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Of course, UPL presents all of our shows, whether it be Insider, Weekly, all the specialty shows like the Draft, season preview, etc. UPL is our presenting sponsor, and we thank them so much for being the presenting sponsor. And then all of our other great sponsors within the SJHL: Borgo, Cantera Seats, Capital Auto Mall, Great Western Nutrient, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGEU, SGI. Thank you so much for your support, because without your support, these shows are not possible. Clark, before we go, final thoughts going into the weekend.
10 games in 2 days. I'm excited. It's going to be a fun one. I get to travel a little bit. We get to see some people, and that's always a good time to seeing some SJHL fans and getting out there into the community. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it should be a great weekend of hockey across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, so be sure to get out to your local rink to check out all of the games. But, of course, if you can't, you can watch all the contests on Flow Hockey. 10 games this weekend, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on an all-new episode of SJHL Insider. And, of course, enjoy the games this weekend.